And we're going to go ahead and try this again. Welcome to the Sunshine State Happy Hour, powered by FloridaBeerBlog.com and the Florida Beer Podcast. This is Dave, your host and author. Producer Steve should hopefully be along sometime soon. If not, that's okay. We can do this ourselves because our guest today is the one, the only, the legend, the man, the myth, Joel Kodner. He is an award-winning brewer at West Palm Brewery and Wine Vault. He is 1/3 of the United We Drink podcast, the most dangerous podcast in beer podcasting. And he is the owner of the second most volatile Twitter handle right now, Florida Brewer.
Who's Joel, number one?
Well, I would assume Trump.
Oh,
I mean, come on. Joel, how are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. It is kind of what it is. So, how are you having a lovely quarantine?
This is paradise to me. I know that sounds horrible. Their unemployment numbers came out today. It's horrific. I know it's terrible for a lot of people, but fortunately, and believe me, it's a miracle, and I'm eternally grateful to still be on the payroll at my place. But even though we've been shut down for a couple weeks, but someone like me, an introvert with anxiety and like hating crowds and gatherings, and I'm loving it. I tried on a mask before. I'm like, God, I hope I can wear a mask all the time.
What kind of mask are you going for?
Well, I had two of those like neck gaiter things that they call them. It's almost like a sleeve that comes up over your face. I don't know where the hell they are. I got one for Halloween a couple years ago, and I got one from the Florida Brewers Guild at one of their meetups. And I have been tearing apart the house looking for them. Can't find them. They're obviously not medical, but at least it's something. And then
gotcha.
my father-in-law hooked me up with a couple of like the blue. I think I have it. Hang on. Yeah, it's one of these. Hang on. Like the.
Okay. Yeah.
See, shit! It just broke. Like these are shit. I'm terrified for nurses and doctors wearing these. You can't see it on camera, but I put this one on before when I tried it on the first time, and it snapped off. So I stapled each corner where and it broke off again. So maybe I won't go to Publix after all.
That's a shame. It's funny. It's funny you mentioned that. My wife just heard that the assumption now is, you should probably wear masks. And luckily, she teaches sewing, and she's got a lot of fabric. So I think she's going to make some masks for us here in the next couple of days. But I had a nice big swath of beer fabric from Joanne, so she's going to make me some beer, which is great. Talking about beer. What are you drinking? Because I know you have some very, very high words of praise for the can that you're drinking out of right now.
Yeah, so this is Ravenhold from Calusa Brewing. I don't know where the hell my camera is.
There you go.
ESB, and it's fantastic. I picked this up as well as their Dark Mild a few weeks back, coming back from the Best Florida Beer Brewers Ball. And I was on the highway on the way home. It was like mid-afternoon, and I saw the sign for Sarasota, and I was like, holy shit, let me check if they're nearby. And it was like 2.5 miles off the highway. So I pulled over real fast and shot over there real quick. I mean, this was probably like 3 weeks ago. Got their, I think it's pronounced Totemic. It's their Table Saison. It's a Brett beer. It's really amazing. Got the ESB, got the mild, and they run the gamut. They make everything so well. The Mexican lager, their Pilsner, it's like they've got super traditional, very well crafted, balanced, approachable beer. And then they've also got the extreme end, like the sours and the foeder stuff and pastry beers. I mean, they're just hazy IPAs. They're doing it all. I think I had referred to them as like the most complete brewery in Florida right now. I mean, they're just killing it.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've always sort of known that they will produce the fanboy sort of beers, the big hazies and the hoppies and everything. But the dark mild and an ESB are two of the, I guess, least beloved by the industry, not the industry, but the influencers and what may be. So it's amazing that they're producing them. And I mean, you're telling me with the ESB, they're hitting it out of the park, which is great.
Everything they do is just made so well. I remember going there a few months back with my brother and my cousins just for a day trip, and there was like a line out the door for whatever IPA release they had that day. But
Nice.
we were just sitting in the tap room enjoying it, and everything they made was just so unbelievably well crafted. And
Gosh,
I'm hopeful that all the crazy trendy stuff they're doing is paving the way for them to do, these things that the rest of us really appreciate.
Let me just go ahead and say I have a couple of these that I've sort of been aging for quite some time. So this has been in my cellar, or in my fridge for a couple of years. Marker 48, which is a hop, skip, and a jump away from Wikiwachi, which still exists. So they had their 3-year anniversary a couple of years ago. And so this is their FDR, which is their sweet stout aged in bourbon barrels. And it's going down much smoother than it needs to.
Nice.
It's just beautifully, I love it. But what's nice about it is that it doesn't taste like you're just drinking straight bourbon, because that's the problem with a lot of barrel beers. I'm curious as to what you think, is that every so often you get one and it's taken on so many characteristics from the barrel that it's less like drinking beer and more like drinking the spirit that it came from.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing I was trying to explain to our staff before we shut down was, a few weeks ago when we were fortunate enough to take a medal for our red wine barrel barley wine, that, it's one thing to brew to style and try to hit your target. It's another thing when you're putting something in a barrel and hoping it works. Because, you can have all your cleaning procedures, you can sweat the barrel and make sure it's not leaking, you can and everybody has their different procedures for just testing it over time. I mean, at one brewery, I was at, we were just opening the bung and thieving it, which, introduces oxygen. You could possibly contaminate it. You've got to be quick and careful. Here, we were just pulling nails out of the side, which is a little safer. But still, you're hoping for the best. Who knows if there's bugs in that barrel? I mean, it's one of 40 barrels I got on my very first day, and it was 3 months before we ever opened. So I was like, these things are just bacteria farms right now. So I had to sweat it real good with hot liquor to make, and the risk in that is, by filling it with hot water and then dumping it, am I losing any of that flavor that I would pick up if I were to just put beer in it?
Yeah.
But I don't want to risk contaminating it or putting it in a leaky barrel. So it did work out well for us. I mean, it sat there for 8 months. And what I was going to say is that, trying to explain to the staff, it's one thing if I just brew my blonde or my IPA or whatever it is, some of these things that have very specific windows of attributes that you're looking for in a category you're entering. It's another thing to kind of put it in a barrel and see how it develops over time, if it is going to pick up the wood or whatever liquid was in it before it. In our case, it was red wine, and what you were drinking was bourbon, you said? So trying to give it the right time, pick up the right balance. You could leave it too long and it's oxidized, or does pick up some sort of funk in that barrel. There's so many different factors that you have to be mindful of. So I love the idea of barrel aging and, kind of hoping for the best. Like, you've brewed the beer that you want to make, and now let's see what happens when you add this whole other factor to it. That's, can be very unpredictable.
Yeah. Now, you did sort of mention what I was going to go for, but it sounds like West Palm Brewery and Wine Vault has basically decided to close for the quarantine.
Yeah. We officially shut down 2 days ago. We are not closed permanently, thankfully. I know some breweries have, which is really unfortunate. I did.
Anybody in Florida?
I don't know. None locally that I know of, which is great. I know everybody is really pushing deliveries and
Mm-hmm.
to-go orders. It looks like everyone is being very diligent, and I imagine lots of. I think this is where that local thing comes into play. Like people want to
Yeah.
support their local breweries now more than ever, and make sure that they're in business when this is all over with. So I think
Yeah.
they're hopefully reaping those benefits of that local reach and fan base. But for us,
Mm-hmm.
we're also a restaurant. So,
Yeah.
as of the last update that I know of, we were shut down 2 weeks ago today. And
Mm-hmm.
sorry, we were directed to not have any dine-in restaurant service until at least May 8th.
Okay.
So, that sucks. It really negatively affects our staff who are hourly and work on tips for the most part. And it's also
Gotcha.
terrible for our chefs and prep cooks who there's nothing for them to do. They can't work. There's no food to
Yeah.
prep. We tried to push to go hard for like a week, our final week that we were open, but there wasn't a big response to it at the time. I think since then, we might have been able to do some business now that more and more is getting locked down, but
Mm-hmm.
the decision was basically made. It just didn't feel safe and responsible to stay open and keep inviting people into the building and working with a limited staff. We did try to prep for a lot of takeout orders. Hopefully, we were hoping to see a little boost, but it wasn't that busy. And our owner made the call to shut it down. Fortunately, he owns the building. The brew system and everything is all good to go and paid for. So,
Good.
um, it's just a lot of other stuff that unfortunately we can't pay right now, like the staff. I mean, it's terrible.
Gotcha. That's a shame, but there at least are some benefits to that. Now you're also the co-host of the United We Drink podcast, which is funny because you started this podcast years ago, back when the three of you were just pups in the industry, and now you sort of grown up and grown old and grown a little bit more jaded, shall we say? What was the decision to come back and start doing that again? And how were things different between when you first started it and now when you've restarted it?
Well, I actually wasn't one of the first. Originally, it was
Oh, really?
Mike and Phil. Phil was the first one to leave corporate America and go work for a brewery, and at the time, it was Cigar City, when Cigar City was totally owned by themselves, basically.
Yeah.
And I think Mike was still in corporate America for a little bit, and then moved into a brewery full time, and then those two guys inspired me to make the same jump.
Okay.
They were a big factor in me getting out of corporate America too. So I was the third one to leave, and they started the podcast together first. And then when things got a lot busier for Phil, and he needed to focus more on work and sales and everything he was doing, he stepped away from the show. Mike invited me to jump in, and we did it for a little while, and then I would say, I mean, our schedules conflicted a lot. We were both working for the same brewery, but at the same time, it was hard to record when we were working so much, and a lot of that was on me and my schedule. So, trying to balance basically running a brewery and production brewing and everything, and also have a family. So that went away for like 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
and then we're still friends. We've always talked since, and kind of got together and said, hey, what do we're a little bit older, we're a little bit wiser. What do you think about getting back into it? And we all thought it was a good idea. I think we all, after however many years we each have in the industry now, have a little bit of a different, maybe older, wiser perspective, hopefully. And not, I mean, the original episodes were a disaster. Fortunately, they've been completely scrubbed from the internet, but just some real disasters, just getting drunk and eating Publix fried chicken on Mike's couch and
Oh my God.
talking a lot of trash. I mean, we would get so canceled.
That's funny. Obviously, since the unpleasantness has occurred, how has that influenced the episodes that you've been recording? How have you been kind of approaching topics and so on?
Well, one of the things that makes the podcast different from back then now is that it's a little more organized and structured. We're pretty much always on schedule, recording on the same day and time usually.
Mm-hmm.
And we will have topics and kind of a format put together where it's like, okay, we're going to talk about this for X amount of minutes. We're going to talk about that. There's going to be a real format to the show, and then we'll put it online. So now with everything shut down and all of us just kind of doing whatever we're doing, we haven't been as rigidly scheduled or structured. We're not really getting too deep into certain topics. I mean, our latest episode dropped today, and we were just kind of trying to focus on a lot of the positives that we're seeing right now, whether it's distilleries making hand sanitizer or breweries offering their finished beer that they can't use to distilleries to be distilled and make hand sanitizer.
I didn't know that was a thing. I thought that's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know too much about it. I don't know a whole lot about distilling, but apparently that's a thing. People were asking me if I was doing that, but I don't even logistically know how I could do it. I don't have any sort of portable mobile tanks or anything that I could transport the beer. You know what I mean? Like, so for me, it wouldn't really make sense. But, so every episode we try to have a topic. The past few, we've just been kind of giving an update on where we're at, what we're doing, how we're handling the pandemic and what's going on in our downtime. And we're just kind of going from there. I mean, it feels a little strange going from topic to topic with the industry basically on hold aside from to-go sales.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy. How has home been? It's interesting to follow you on Twitter because you are not only very prolific, but you rarely hold anything back. And there was a rather interesting tweet that you had mentioned yesterday, about the amount of homework that your kids are going through with their new online learning. How was that? How has that been?
So yeah, I can add 4th and 6th grade teacher to my resume now. It's like in the beginning, when this first started and the kids were off school, they were having the time of their lives. My daughter's in a bunch of honors classes. My son's good, but he hates school. I mean, he absolutely hates it. So, I mean, this was the biggest gift you could give him, to not have to go to school. And, he's already, starting 6th grade, middle school, having to adjust to all the changes and everything. So that was already difficult as it was. And now he's home and they're both learning online. I think it's like, I can't imagine this happening 10, 20 years ago. Fortunately with Google Classroom, YouTube, they're just uploading homework like you would send a file to, a coworker in your email. So, but it's just crazy. Like each class is supposed to have like some live video chat like this, at least once a week. So I sit in on his first one yesterday, and it's literally like the teacher where like she's she's like this, like you can see half of her head. And it's hilarious. I'm like, does she even see herself? I don't know what's going on there. And then off to the side, you've got like 20 kids all just talking over each other. And then some of them are like, the prissy ones who like are, the ones who like love, helping the teacher hand shit out and take attendance, like the kiss ass kids. They're all like, everyone shut up. I can't hear the teacher. I need to know the assignment. Like, it's just total chaos. And I was like, I was seeing tweets over the past couple of weeks of like people that had already gotten into it, and they're like, oh my God, these teachers need raises. And they're absolutely correct. I mean, for me to sit here and coordinate 2 kids and all their classes and their homework and their assignments, and like, it's insane. And like some of the stuff my son does is actually cool. He's got like it kind of looks like Pokemon, but it's a role-playing turn-based video game that, like, if you get a math question correct, you can shoot lasers at a duck or some crazy thing. But
is that Classcraft by any chance?
No, I don't know what it is exactly. It's on some Prodigy website. I don't know, but I thought that was like, my son's sitting there complaining like, oh, I don't want to do that, and I'm like, dude, you get to play a video game. We did not have that.
No. I can't imagine the book that I would have gone home with if this had occurred when I was still in school.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Which,
It would have been so much paperwork. I mean, there's not even like any going to a library. Like that's not even a thing anymore. I've never once. I mean, the kids are fourth and sixth grade in all the combined years. Not once have they ever had to go to the library for anything. Everything's online.
yeah.
So I think it's fortunate timing in that sense that they can at least do everything online and not, have to rely on encyclopedias and all that craziness.
Exactly. And then you've got all sorts of fun stuff. I definitely have to shout out your Twitter because you'll put up stuff that I just love. Like, growing up, I was a huge fan of Mask.
Oh,
and
yeah.
All of a sudden, in comes Joel with like the mask, and like, oh, for those of you that don't remember, Mask was what was it, Kenner toy line?
Kenner, which I guess was eventually bought out by Hasbro. Yeah, like all those old school toy brands like Hasbro, Kenner, LJN, they had like the greatest toys back then. Like I've always said that I feel terrible for kids right now because everything is in like blind box and blind bag. So it's like they spend $5 on something, they don't even know what it is. And it's like you could have got that one 3 times already. We knew it was always in like a bubble card and, at the pharmacy, at the grocery. I mean, I bought most of my toys from a grocery store in suburban Chicago. I mean, it was right behind my house. My G.I. Joes, He-Man, Thundercats, all that stuff. So, yeah, I was just saying that I thought it was funny. Mask was from Kenner, which is now defunct, but I guess Hasbro owns their stuff. But are you pulling it up now? That's the best theme song.
Yeah.
I love it. and it's basically like G.I. Joe meets Transformers.
It is. Yeah, it was great. Okay, how many of the toys did you have?
I definitely had him, Matt Tracker, with his like Camaro thing. T-Bot was the shit, that little dude. There's always a little guy like that, whether it's T-Bot, Orko, Bumblebee was tiny back in the day. And I was actually more partial to GoBots than Transformers. Like people want to crucify me when I say that. But yeah, I had that. I think I had that both. It's weird.
It's funny because it's funny. I'm sitting there watching this, and I'll replay it. I had more of the villain toys than I had the heroes because, this green motorcycle, it turns into the helicopter. I remember that one.
Condor. That was my favorite.
Condor, yes. I had this play set. The gas station with the mountain that turned into the base. Yes.
It's called not Thunder Mountain. Boulder Mountain something.
I think it's Boulder Mountain. I think you're totally right. And what was funny is, and I think you sort of mentioned this, obviously they all have masks, but each mask had like a superpower, like you could shoot lasers or something, but it was in the mask. It was technological, I guess. And so I love the fact that you sort of brought this up, which, is topical and everything. I had this one too. I had the helicopter that turns into a jet, which is sort of cheating as far as I'm concerned. Just keep it as a jet. I mean, come on. But yeah, I love the fact that you will throw out things like this, which is just hysterical. So I will guess, as you are dealing with the coronavirus, what kinds of things are you watching? What kinds of things are you binging and watching and recommending that people do?
It's stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's definitely stuff like that because what I've noticed recently, and this was even before all this stuff was going on, is that because I'll end up going down these crazy YouTube rabbit holes. And one thing I've been thinking a lot about lately is how we have so much content all the time coming at us. I mean, I'm listening to probably dozens of podcasts a week. There's always new music. There's always new TV, whether it's Netflix, Disney Plus, Hulu, YouTube TV, Amazon. There is constant new content coming at us, and it feels like so many things are not only getting left behind as they always do, but just almost disappearing from our collective consciousness. So I've been trying to share a lot of stuff with people like old TV series, old comedy specials, old if you just go on YouTube one night and watch a little bit of like the Honeymooners or any of that, because like the sitcom format has never changed. Like
Yeah.
Kevin James or Al Bundy, they're all Ralph Cramden.
Yeah.
You know, they're the fat lazy slob with, you know, the hot wife that's always keeping them in, you know, on track and out of trouble. You know, and there's just so much original classic stuff. I've been finding all this new, well, not new, but live music, you know, performances that I had never seen before.
Really?
I mean, I probably saw Talking Heads stop making sense
Mm-hmm.
like 30 something years after it actually came out. Like, always been a Talking Heads fan. My mom was always playing it and watching their videos and stuff. And now with YouTube and all the ease of
Yeah.
accessibility to that stuff, it's like, oh, I'm finding all these. I'm finding. I'm one of those people that normally prefers the studio version to the live version, because it's like you go watch a live performance and you're like, what the hell are they doing? They're off key, or they're the enunciation or the tone is different. Like they've changed the song. And now I'm finding all this stuff where it's like, I'd rather hear this than the original version that I've heard for, you know, 30 years.
Years.
There's so much great old stuff. I mean, Def Comedy Jam, old sitcoms like Martin. There's no shortage of it, but it's like it's all out there, and it feels like everyone's on this trajectory to keep watching new, and forgetting about all the old great stuff. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you can't even get away with today, whether it's in living color, so much old. I mean, try watching an episode of Married with Children. Like, it wouldn't make it 3 episodes in 2020. It just wouldn't.
So I do want to shift a little bit towards this, because if you were watching us on Twitter earlier today, one of your passions, I know you love Chicago as much as I do. It's a great place. They've got phenomenal beer, but they also have this, which is Jepson's Malort. Can you describe this? Hopefully they are watching. That'd be great. If not, we'll see.
So Malort was originally introduced to me from Jake Koneman, who is what brewery? Central State Brewing and the Cool Ship. And he just popped into my last brewery one day. He said he was coming to town, shows up in the brew house, and he's like, "What's up? I'm Jake." And he hands me this, you know, care package basically with Malort and some other great stuff. And it's horrible, but it's amazing. And, you know, it's infamously known as popular among like brewers, service industry people, but, you know, it's not one of those things where like, oh, you're into craft beer, now you're going to try to get your in-laws into craft beer, or your cousins or your sister. Like, this is not that. I mean, this is love it or hate it. And sometimes it's both. And I think I love it because I hate myself. And it's one of those things. Like, I was in Chicago like for 48 hours 2-3 months ago, and I was looking everywhere for it. Like, I spent a good chunk of my time there, going from store to store trying to find this. Eventually I went to a Binny's and found like a little travel size gift box. There's like 6 of them in there. And that was all I could fit in my suitcase. But I always liken it to, it tastes like how a auto parts store smells. So you've got that metallic, that burnt rubber, that like used tires and, you know, motor oil. I mean, there's no good way to describe it in a way that makes it appealing to anyone.
No,
like if I'm going to talk, if I'm going to go to like someone who's used to drinking macro beer and say, hey, you got to try this IPA. It's got notes of, you know, floral this and citrus that and pineapple and mango. Oh yeah, they'll give it a shot. If I try to explain Malort to someone who's never had it, like, they're not going to want it. And I give people realistic expectations. I'm going to tell them like, this is shit, but I love it. And they're like, why would you? Oh, that's a nice, healthy pour right there.
Okay, well, wish me luck.
Cheers. I wish I had some myself. I do have Malort coffee downstairs that I ordered. Oh, gee.
Oh my god.
Oh shit!
Oh
I
my
wish I
god.
was ready for the screenshot that.
This aftertaste is not okay. My wife just walked in the room. She's staring at me, and she's gonna try some. You gonna try some, sweetie? No, she's not gonna try. Oh wow, it's exactly like the rubber from an automotive store.
Yeah,
That's exactly what it is. Excuse me.
yeah. Wash it down with some bourbon barrel stout. That's
Oh,
that's a good palate cleanser from Malort.
oh man, you were saying, yeah, I saw that you had the Malort coffee.
Yeah, it's from Dark Matter Coffee in Chicago. Someone online knows how I feel about Malort. They tagged me in some post about the coffee. I guess it says the coffee is conditioned on Malort. I don't know if they just soak the beans or whatever it is, but I'm looking forward to trying it. And I do have supposedly a bottle of barrel aged Malort coming.
Oh my god,
Yeah,
what kind of
I
barrel
don't
would
even know
that
what
be?
barrel, and I don't care. I mean, they could have aged it in like a 93 Corolla. I don't care.
See, Malort aging, I feel, is like, Back to the Future 3, where he spills a little bit of whiskey on the bar top and it eats through the bar top.
Yes.
That's kind of what I
Yeah,
see
that's
that
the
at.
stuff they're gonna get that's the stuff they're gonna pour in the DeLorean gas tank or whatever it was. Like it's
Exactly.
gonna knock Doc Brown on his ass before he's even had a shot.
Yeah. All right. Well, I will let you get back to it. I need to basically pray to whatever gods I can to get this taste out of my mouth. But thank you so much for jumping on the happy hour. And yeah,
You
just
bet.
hang in there.
You too, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.